Hello and welcome everyone to It's Getting Dicey, the TriStar podcast about games and buddies and everything in between. My name is John. I will be your host for today, and I am joined by Mikey
Hey guys.
and Salvatore.
Hello, guys.
So, today, um, not a whole lot to talk about topic wise, but I'm sure we'll find a way to talk about them a lot. I don't know. That was dumb.
Absolutely.
I might cut that later. I might leave it in. I don't know. Um, so anyhow, we recently put out a Black Powder American Civil War, our first video that we've been working really hard to get out. It's been like almost a year in the making, right?
Hmm.
Close.
Yeah, so we finally got that out, and it got a really warm welcome. We were kind of worried that since most of our fans we gathered along the way with other game systems, that, we knew it would get watched, but we didn't know how much. We didn't know how much people would really appreciate it, at least the ones that were already there. But man, we got several subs overnight. It's currently sitting at our number one within the time frame that it's been a live watched video. Um, it's crazy. I
It's
don't
not
know
even
about you
close.
guys.
Like, number two's not even close.
Yeah, I know. It's like it just kind of blew up, and everybody's been leaving like really nice comments in the Facebook groups where I kind of put the video, and then also on the video itself. And you guys have been awesome.
It was totally unexpected from my side. Um, this tells us that there are a lot of people interested in American Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, and I knew there was a hobby group for that. Uh, I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't think they would be concentrated enough to to give such a warm reception to a video like that, if that makes sense.
No, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like other games that we follow, like again, Bolt Action, for example, they have many channels that many people follow them. Uh, I don't know how many channels. I don't know the online presence for the American Civil War. Probably we may be one of the few, or I don't know.
Yeah, there's a few other channels that we kind of peep in on every now and again for Black Powder, and then ACW Black Powder, Epic Scale Black Powder. But I'd say most of them are hobby channels more than they are battle report channels.
I see. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So, and then all the channels that do battle reports for ACW, like they're like what, like 4 years old at minimum. Have you found anything
Yeah.
more recent?
I saw when I was first, when we first started touching base with this game, I saw a few, but they were mainly, other than a couple, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but most of them were all like at least a year old, at least 6, 8 months, maybe a year old.
Yeah, I mean, people were excited. One of our most watched videos ever was the Epic Scale unboxing,
Yeah.
um, which also didn't surprise me, but it did at the time, I guess. Like looking back on it, it's not surprising. I don't know. All that to say, though, we're probably gonna. I mean, we had plans to do it anyway, but we're definitely gonna make more videos now. Um, so yeah, that was just I don't know. That was really cool to me being able to get such a reaction out of something we did put a lot of effort into and are still putting a lot of effort into painting these little 15 millimeter guys, like hundreds of them, man. Oh wow, it's
Which is funny
crazy.
because I think me and John discussing techniques on how to get them out quicker than we normally do, that has actually taken up a lot more of our conversation outside of gaming than it ever used to. I think we rarely discussed techniques and strategies on how to get more painted. We always did more gameplay type, talks outside of the channel, and now these little Civil War dudes have taken up a lot of time of our. Well, try this, man. Try that. To get this out quicker.
Yeah, and that's not even that's not to say it's a bad thing either. I
No,
think
no, no.
it's really pushed me as a hobbyist to try different things, and I've found myself you know when I paint 28 millimeter stuff now, I'm so much faster at it.
Yep.
And you wouldn't think it would translate, but it does because you find out things you never would have found out on a different scale, which is actually a really good segue. And I really need to stop using the word segue, transition into a different kind of topic here. Our first big topic really is gaming in different scales. Um, I think amongst the three of us, we've done 15 millimeter, 28
Mm-hmm.
millimeter, 132nd, or excuse me, 32 millimeter, 6 millimeter. Basically, if there's a scale, we've done it. And then if you want to count Black Seas, I mean, I know it's basically like 28 millimeter, really, but it's like what, one
Well,
seven
yeah, one seven
hundredth?
hundredth or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we've played in a lot of different scales.
You
Um,
know, and sadly Andrew couldn't be here because he's at work. But Andrew, I'm sure, would even be able to throw another couple scales in there that he's done that we haven't, maybe. You know.
yeah, like with those monsters or mechs or whatever.
Yeah.
But uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So like we were just talking a little bit about painting the 15 millimeter guys. Um, what do you guys think are some advantages and disadvantages of each scale that you've worked with? Like from experience, what have you found about each scale? How do they translate to each other? We can start with Mikey.
Uh, well, I mean, I started out with heroic scale. I guess you was that would that be 35 millimeter or 28?
32, I think. That's
32?
modern
Yeah, that
40K.
sounds right. Yeah, and I can remember when John and I first delved into Lord of the Rings. I was concerned about going to 28 millimeter. I remember thinking, man, those little guys are so small. How am I ever going to show off my amazing tabletop standard painting skills? And they turned out to be very easy. And I started to really, I guess, come into my own on speed with those guys. Um, and I will admit, though, when we moved into the Civil War ACW, this scale really intimidated me, and it did for a long time. But I think overall, if you're going to play large war games, and I know everybody has a different definition of large, I don't know how you could play anything bigger than 13 or 15 millimeter because just the amount of models you have to get out in order to have a large, enjoyable game. Like, yeah, for one, if there's a mortgage on your house, probably, financially to pay for all the models. But then on top of that, the amount of labor you got to put in if you have a job and a family, I don't know that you ever get it done in a reasonable amount of time.
And
If
the
you try to,
space.
yeah, space.
So yeah, what other have you done anything besides you've done 15, 28, 30 because we've done all those together. And then Black Seas, which I mean that's like I mean it's kind of 28 millimeters sort of. Not really, but it's a similar size in your hand, I guess is what I'm trying to say, but definitely painting it, those little windows and stuff are tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I've done anything other than that. 35, 30. Well, 30, I guess 32. Is that what Blood Bowl is? 32.
Yeah, I think it's still the heroic
Okay.
scale.
Yeah, and honestly, outside of Blood Bowl or even a skirmish game, I think Andrew introduced me to Relic Blade, and I think that's a 32 millimeter or maybe yeah, I think 32 millimeter is about right for that game. He would know more, but honestly, for me, anything other than a skirmish game, I don't know that I'll ever play it bigger than 15 millimeter again, just because I was discussing with Salva off the air before we began today. One of the things that drew me towards a Civil War game, and the reason why I want to expand into the Napoleonics was as a child that grew up in the days when History Channel actually showed history documentaries. When I see these little bitty square and rectangular stands moving around on the table, it reminds me of watching the History Channel and seeing like when they do the diagrams of how the battles played out. You know what I'm talking about, John, where it would give you like a long
Mm-hmm.
rectangle, you could say Grant, and basically that's what I picture in my head is the old Civil War battle maps with the different colored rectangles and the commanders' names on the rectangle as these guys move around the table.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I went with it in my head too. That's awesome. Salvo, what about you, man? What have you done?
I played. I would say the smallest I ever played was Cruel Sea from Warlords. I forgot the scale, but basically it's a World War II naval scale, so probably should be the same as Black Sea, probably. Those are the smallest I ever played. Then I played 6 millimeters, and I played 28, and then the 32 with the famous heroic scale. And I gotta say that each one of them gives a different feel. Probably the 28 and the 32 are the closest, but definitely the 6 millimeters gives a different feel. I would say, especially into the historical war game, uh, aside from winning tournaments, if you play for scenarios, you want to, at least as a general, you want to feel that you're at the end of the battle. You want to feel that you've mustered the forces of something meaningful. So, like for example, in bolt action, you can say, I don't know, I held the bridge, or I disabled I retrieved the secret informations. Great. But when you see a lot of models, like you see different groups of artilleries and infantries working together, you see that your battlefield is actually not just a bridge, but it's probably a section of the battlefield. I don't know. It makes you feel more that you're moving things. It moves away from the tactical and it leans towards the strategic more. And I have not played a lot of that, but I find it very rewarding.
I find it more fun in general too. Like I used to be a big skirmish game guy. Like when I moved away from conventional 40K, which I think is where a lot of us got our start, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think I'll ruffle any of our fans' feathers with that statement. Um, but when I moved away from that, it was like Kill Team. It was other skirmish games. Lord of the Rings is, as far as a Middle Earth strategy battle game, it can be a skirmish game. So that was kind of the next step, and then we started kind of ramping up from there. Um, I don't know, man. I guess I love the old Avalon Hill board games and stuff a lot. I own multiple editions of Axis and Allies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously that skill is not gonna work to any degree on a miniature table. That's what the board games are for. So I don't want my board game in a tabletop game, but it's closer, like you were saying. I feel like when I play a skirmish game, there's a lot of it's a lot of crazy stuff that happens. Like this model does a crazy thing, and then we're talking about it after the game, and it's still fun, but it's totally different from when we played our Civil War game the other night. We're talking in terms of like, Brigadier General Russ Brigade and what it did or didn't do, and then the different heroics of the individual regiments within it, and it's I find the larger scale games are simpler too. Like you can have all that fun without having to
Mm-hmm.
cram a bunch of rules in your head. Like Black Powder it's intimidating at first because the author of the book is very wordy, but then you read it and you play, and like you've understood 90% of the game if you've played 3 turns of it, or rounds rather. you know
Mm-hmm.
Now,
so I don't
can
know.
I interject for a second there,
Yeah,
John?
go ahead.
This right here touches base with what you said about the author of the book, and this is nothing against him, okay? And I oftentimes wonder if it is a little bit of a language barrier because we do speak the same language, but I think we speak it differently. And I wonder sometimes, since we've noticed with Warlord and Games Workshop, our biggest gripe, I think, with Warlord games is they don't seem there seems to be, when you do have a special rule, it's not found where we think that it would, by common sense, be found. And we've
Yeah.
come across that with Black Seas. We've come across that with Bolt Action and Black Powder. You will, like, for instance, in our game the other day, we were discussing what was it we were discussing, John? And we kept, it wasn't an argument, but it was a discussion about, it was,
Oh, the
I wanted to give
disordered.
an order. Yeah, I wanted to give an
Yeah.
order with my brigadier commander. I was part of a unit that was disordered, and I wanted to give an order. And John was like, "Well, I'm looking under the order phase, and I don't see anything about why if you can or cannot give an order when you're a part of a disordered unit." And I said, "Dude, go to the disordered part of the book." And John's like, "That doesn't make any sense." And I said, "I know." But yeah, he went and he found it, and that's where it said it. And it is something that spans between all of the Warlord games we've played. And I don't think it's. I mean, I honestly, I really believe it has to do with more just maybe the conventions of the actual English speaking versus the conventions of the American English speaking. And so maybe our English listeners don't have the same problems with the books that we do, but that's why when you say that it's kind of wordy, I agree. But then again, it may not be. It may not be to our native English speakers.
Sometimes like just the way a rule's written, the
Yeah,
English that it chooses to use, like verb wise and adjective wise, just throws me off because I'll sit there and read it once and think I understand it, and then read it again and kind of get a different. I think
yeah,
I think the wordier a rule is, and this goes for any game I've ever played, the wordier a rule is. So like you pull up the rule, like say it's I don't know, rule is the rule, and like if it's a whole paragraph versus one line, it's gonna get interpreted wrong. And I feel like that's my only gripe with Black Powder so far is some of those rules just elaborate on themselves to the point of being confusing. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe no one else has that problem, but I certainly do. So, you know, tell us in the comments, I guess. You ever run into that, Salvo? You're an Italian. How are Italian
Yes,
rule
yes,
books?
yes, yes. I make this mistake, guys, and I'm sure some of our listeners they probably do the same. Um, at times, when I'm learning a game, it's most likely because a friend introduced it to me. So what I do, I if I like the game, I will definitely buy the rule book. I will read it. I'm one of those guys still that likes the physical book. Like I like to be able to flip the pages. But what I would do, I would take for granted that the basics that this friend of mine told me are true,
Yeah.
and I will play for like even a year without questioning, and until someone or something will happen that will question that rule, and I will be like, no, 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 no. Have you read the rule? Like, of course, I always played it, and then we go to the book and boom, we played it wrong. Uh, so yes, despite me liking to read the rules, at the same time, at times I find myself to just trust, and at times I find myself to. I mean, people can make mistakes in good faith, but I believe a lot of discussions come out of the fact that not everyone reads the rules.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I have come across many instances of everyone being on the different page quite literally in the rule book, um, and somehow having an argument over something. But I don't think we don't suffer from that too much because we're all there for the same reason. I think you really don't run into that until you start getting into competitive
Yeah,
games.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's
yeah.
another
Because
thing that.
that's when people are literally trying to split hairs, which that is another thing. And when you talk about rules, is I think is a detriment to all of us is the fact that as a gamer, and all of us are gamers, we've played a plethora of different games. I know when we played a Song of Ice and Fire for a little while, I was usually the one guy who would be on the opposite um, of all of you when it came to the rules interpretations because of my years of playing Magic the Gathering. Um, I took it as you you followed the rules until the card told you not to. And then there were a lot of things in the Song of Ice and Fire that when I tried to apply that Magic the Gathering type mentality to, it
Mhm.
would make me interpret the rules differently than you guys. And that was something that it took me a while to just say, okay, Mikey, stop. These books, these rules, they felt very magicy to me. But I had to tell myself, dude, you're not playing Magic. Stop reading into these into these rules this much.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. This is something that I believe it has happened to me even with bolt action itself. At times I take things for granted because I don't know, it makes sense to me, and in reality, I'm wrong. So, but I gotta say this though, a game that we all love, well, not all of us, some do. Um, it looks like a simple game, and it is at its core. But the fact that after 3 years of me playing it quite regularly, I still have doubts, and I look back, and there are situations that still I don't have a firm grasp on what's going on until I go back to the book. It should tell us something. It's probably not as simple as we thought.
Yeah, well, even something simple to me, that I had to ask, and I wouldn't have said this on camera because it would have made people watching our video go, "What?" But I'll say it here. Um, when we were playing
What?
Black Powder, I was used to bolt action. You start at 4 for everything,
Yeah.
like to hit.
Oh, yes,
The
yes.
base value is 4. So when I was
Mm-hmm.
rolling dice, I was calculating. I was like, all right, shooting overhead with my artillery, and then like long, over half range. That's a 6. And Mikey's like, no, it's not. Um, and I was like, what? It's like, do we start at 3s or 4s? You know, and so we had to look
Mm-hmm.
in the book to see if the base value was 3 or 4, and it's
Oh,
just
and I got one better than that. We did it on the live stream, John. Do you know which one I'm talking about? We were
uh
using the bolt action, giving the commanders +1.
oh yeah,
We
yeah we
forgot about that one in the live stream.
yeah we had the little cheat sheet right in front of us, and we were still managing to when we did an order test in Black Powder, we were giving a +1 for the commander being within range, and that's just not a thing.
Yep.
uh
Well,
so
you guys were creative.
Yeah.
I guess.
We 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 created our own game.
Yeah.
Well,
Excuse me.
some games allow you to do that though. Like Black Powder is one of them. That I mean, bolt action to a degree, Black Seas to a degree, but one thing that I've been coming to love about Warlord in general, but Black Powder especially, is a lot of times the rules are just like, you know what, you do what you want with this. Like, here's a guideline, and if you don't like it, then don't play it that way. Play it however you and your opponent or group want to do it. Which to me, within reason, as long as it's not like that with every rule, I like, because sometimes, and that's one of my biggest gripes with bolt action, things just don't make any sense to me. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand why they're the way they are, what they're getting at, Like, it's like some guy was just looking at it and went, it should be this way. And then there was no actual. They didn't, like, look at a history book and go, well, because of X reason, we should make a rule to represent it. No, it was just like, you do this.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
now that's where John and I were a little bit at odds, and I don't want to say that. I don't say at odds in a serious term. I mean it, in the most light term possible. I'm a little more strict on my rules. So Black Powder was very overwhelming to me at first because we would be playing a game, and I would say, we played a lot of test games before we finally decided to even put it on the air. And there would be a situation where I would say, okay, so I want to do this, but because of this rule, it says I have to do this. So how does that work? And then John's like, I don't care, dude, just do it. And my brain, if you can picture like an old school cartoon, smoke is pouring out of my ears as my brain is short circuiting. Like I don't understand, just do it. Like I understand definites, and I don't I didn't understand, and to a certain degree, and you can if you've already seen our last video or our first Black Powder video, you can see us having that discussion over the river, and you can hear it, the pain in my voice as I'm trying to understand what John means when he says, "Yeah, dude, you can cross the river in one movement," but it halves my movement by to half, John. Yeah, but you can still cross the river in one move. But how?
I think I actually found the answer to that now that we're sitting here. I don't know that I brought it back up to you. I think that terrain normally takes multiple. So I think you were right, and I think I was the one reading too far into it this time, because basically, normally with rivers, I think you have to stop at one bank, use a
Okay,
whole move to get across, and then stop and then go. Like
okay,
fording a river is a whole self-contained like order basically.
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Like imagine like mounting a transport in another game. Think of it that way.
okay.
Um, and I think what that scenario was trying to say, and again, it didn't point to any other rules, so I think that's why we were both like, what? Was that you could, despite having a halved movement while doing it, cross it in one order. Like, you didn't have to stop, take an order to cross it regardless of distance, and then move again.
Yeah, so then in other words, I did do it correctly whenever I was rolling enough on my order checks. I actually was
Yes.
doing enough to, if I got more than one order, then if I could clear it, I could clear it. That makes sense.
Yes. So, again, I think that's an instance of maybe the rule not being too wordy, but maybe not wordy enough. I don't know. Now I sound like a woman. We don't have any
Oh my.
female viewers, so That's
We
not gonna
actually
make
do,
anybody mad.
guys. I checked our analytics this morning, and 1.2% of the viewers are female.
What?
Oh,
Yep.
Okay, well, I just pissed our female
You
audience
just
off.
run her off. And one viewer.
Oh man.
No, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Now listen, you guys are both on the. It's funny enough that out of us three, we all kind of work in the same line of work, but from different perspectives.
That's true.
I tend to do the front end, and John and Salvo are the tail end of computers and data and technology. And in my line of work, we have a saying: when an owner's manual or an installer's manual is given to somebody to install, they
Mm-hmm.
write these manuals with the idea that you already know what you're doing. So they will allude to certain things that you need to do, but they will allude to those with the idea that you already know that. So just go ahead and do what you know to do. And I think sometimes these instruction manuals, I think sometimes they, when they're teaching you the game or or the scenarios, John, when a scenario tells you something like that, they're telling you that with the idea that you've probably already combed the book from beginning to end and you know what you're doing. And I think that might be that's definitely something I think John and I, we're not like Salva. Salva said he still likes to have the book. I mean, I think I would prefer an actual paper book too over the digital copy. But that being said, my days of getting a book and reading it from beginning to end are done. I still love to read regular books, but rule books, no. You give me a
Mm-hmm.
rule book and I love having it and I'll put it in my bookshelf and I will probably pull the book out to learn the basics. And then before me and John, either one can get through the stinking rule book, we're trying to play a game and fumbling through it, learning rules as we go.
I just can't
mhm.
visualize it if I don't do it. Like
I agree.
I can't internalize something very well. Like say a rule says like, if X happens then Y. Like unless I actually see X happen and then apply Y to it, like it just doesn't internalize. I don't know. Salvo seems to be better at that for me.
Just because, well, it's just because I trying to. I'm one of those people that actually find the pleasure, the beauty of a rule. So it's not just how effective it is, but certain rules have an elegance, and that's when you do like some game designer, you see that. It's probably even something in common with math. I heard people saying that certain equations have a beauty to it, and I
No, they
couldn't really
don't.
understand it. But when it comes to war game, I can tell that certain rules have a beauty to it because they just fit into place and they answers a lot of problems in a very elegant, intuitive way. Um, so
Sometimes.
yeah, I may do better in that, but honestly, I do need a physical to look at it because again, it's better to have a visual as well. So I won't lie, having it's better than not having it.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, right? I think the
Mm-hmm.
expectation that you play a game and get everything right when it's new to you is just it's
Yeah,
bogus.
that pressure can actually ruin the game. The
Hmm.
pressure of having everything right. And I realized this when I played my first Bolt Action tournament. I was very, very, very onto the rules on the first turn, and that completely overran the idea that actually my opponent is a human being and we're there to enjoy this time, not just to compete to the end. And thankfully, by probably turn 3 or 4, things started to slow down. And I realized that in the end, every game is a self contained contract between you and your opponent. Yes, the rules are there, but at the same time, there are some norms, I would call it, that we all play. So, for example, one norm that I used to play is if I make a mistake and you allow me to fix it, like, oh, I should have done this. Do you mind if I go back and do this? If you let me do it, then I will let you do it later on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I think that's something that terrified me and Mikey when we kind of started up the channel. And I say that like you guys weren't there like 2 months after we did it, but it was just us two fumbling through a cell phone camera and a game at the same time, and back then that was a lot. And I feel like we would upload a video and people didn't mean anything by it, but they would tell us things like, you know, like, hey, you got this rule wrong, you messed this up here. And I know they're just pointing it out for us, which is really helpful, honestly. But man, every time it got to a point where we would upload a video and be like, all right, let's take bets on how many things we got wrong. But we weren't focusing on the beauty of the fact that all these people are watching our videos, right? Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
good thing. We're having fun while making them, and people are watching them. So when we did this black powder video, that I'm aware of actually watching it back, and no one said anything negative yet. I don't know that we did make any mistakes, really. Big ones anyway, noticeable. But even if we had of, I wasn't worried about it. You know, that's not the point.
Yes.
That's not the point. And even if someone had to come along and been like, "Oh, you enfiladed when you shouldn't have," or whatever, uh, whatever, man.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. It's not the point. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah,
Actually,
that
I have a
was
solution for that, guys. I have a solution for that. The solution is I will um, I will introduce you all to the new game system that I have designed, and therefore, once we're going to do some videos on that, hopefully in the next future, nobody could tell us we messed the rule because we made the rules.
wait. But what if we still get our own rules wrong? Which we will.
Oh my, you're right. You're right.
But what
You're
is
right.
this game, Salvo?
Yes, this game is called TIC, Troops in Combat. It's an acronym thanks to Mikey. He found it. And well, as for now, it is a World War II skirmish game. So we're talking about probably 8, 9 guys against 8, 9 guys. Uh, an easy reference would be probably Saving Private Ryan in terms of the squad. So you're going to have a squad leader, and then you're going to have a bunch of specialists, such as for example, a gunner. You could have a marksman, maybe a medic, and then you're going to have 2 or 3 regular riflemen, probably regular soldiers, and then you fight for little missions that are more maybe yeah, I would say probably Saving Private Ryan would be a good reference. So something very specific where you're gonna play. As far as now, there are no vehicle involved. Maybe I may plan to involve some soft skin vehicles for the bolt action crowd out there. So like Jeep, for example, or trucks. But yes, it's gonna be something more. Probably, I would like to say an hour and a half at the most per game.
That's good. I like short games. Um, so yeah, you've been working on that. I know because me and Mikey helped playtest the alpha version.
Mm-hmm.
Is it alpha or beta yet? What do you think?
I don't know. I would say it's the pre-alpha.
Pre-alpha. Oh, we're still in pre-alpha. Oh boy. Um, I don't know. It feels pretty. I don't want to say done, but it feels playable in its current
Mm-hmm.
state. And
Yes.
I don't know when it'll be like playable for sure, for sure. I guess we'll have to kind of make that call, but yeah, I think the goal is to get it out to the community to kind of test, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. My idea is to get to the point where I have fun. So the F factor, I call it, the fun factor is no matter how elegant the rules are, no matter how it works, if I personally do not have fun playing it, I would not invite anyone, encourage
Yeah.
anyone to play with it. So the only way to have fun is actually to do it. So I can do a lot of mental um, simulations or even on paper, and it works. But then if you don't have fun, and honestly, guys, I would like to introduce him to you very shortly. Actually, I say it publicly. The next time we have a chance, I would like to play with you. I will be the observer, teaching you the game, and then I will probably have John and Mikey facing each other. So if that is fun, we may actually start introducing into our audience.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the goal. Also, I'll briefly mention it here to coincide with that. And it'll be a big tool. I feel like if we end up doing that,
Mm-hmm.
we're working on. I mean, I say working on. It's kind of ready to go. I guess we just. I don't know. I didn't want to cram too many things at once at the end of the year and it not get the attention it deserved. We do have a Discord for our channel that we're making, so that we can involve you guys a little more directly than having to reply over YouTube comments. Which don't stop commenting there because you know that helps. But um, we are kind of like working on a Discord system for the channel, and maybe that would be a place where we could share information about the game development. You know, have like a channel for that for those familiar with Discord. I don't know.
Mhm.
Salvo's kind of like spearheading this project because he's the brain that kind of came up with the original idea, and then we kind of just latched onto it because it was a good idea. So I'm kind of leaving
Thank you.
most of that up to him.
Yeah. So I think it is a good idea. Everything started a year ago. I don't know if you want me to mention the firefight experience we had with the bolt action.
Did you ever play it?
Yes, actually, I did. I did. I was part of the playtesting for the firefight rule set for the Warlord games, and despite me not being allowed to disclose anything, I can say that I read the rules for the firefight, and it is a pretty hefty rule book. It's not the little Racton's Creek, I think it's called, that was released. So
Mm-hmm.
it was something more beefy with ability trees for specialists, such as, again, Gunner, Squad Leader, NCO, etc. So it was pretty hefty with a lot of scenarios with the four major powers. And so we played some play testing, and the game was not in a state, I believe, of being published. It was still rough. There were certain things that did not scale well from the regular bolt action to the skirmish level. So at one point, we heard from Warlords that they did not, uh, they were not willing to continue the project, so they discontinued it, at least for now. So what I did, since I really like the approach of the World War II, I really like the whole uh, leveling up of your characters based on historical names, etc. I decided to create my own. So I started with what I knew, what the things that I liked about bolt action, and slowly over time, adding things that I found more interesting. And the game in the end turned out to be so different that I couldn't even call it bolt action anymore. In fact, he has a completely different name. But everything
So,
started with bolt action firefights.
uh, yeah. So it's kind of you're saying it has like the DNA, sort of in the same way that some of the like Hail Caesar and Black Powder have the War Master DNA, but
Yes,
I mean it's not like calling it War Master is just incorrect.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I would not call this a bolt action spin-off because it is not. Actually, there are no order dice to begin with, so that makes it very, very different. And the whole action, basically, the whole activation is not based on a die, but it is based on actions. So at every turn, the players will alternate between being the active and the reactive player. So, for example, if I am the active player, I had three activation dice, and each success with those dice will allow me to do one action. So, for example, running, shooting, go down, standing up, and I can decide to do like three on one unit to spread them out on three different units. So that is the thing. And when I'm done using my dice, my momentum, that's how I call it, is being spent. And so the reactive player now becomes being the active player, and I become the reactive player. So basically, we switch roles, and we go back and forth until all our units are being activated, and that ends the turn. I'm just making it very, very simple.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that wasn't exactly how it worked in the version we played, but I
What
enjoyed
you guys
enough.
played? No, what you guys played was again more close to the regular bolt action.
So it's even more different now, which
Oh,
I'm down for.
yeah, yeah. It is very, very, very different.
Yeah, I would
Cool.
say Salva was a good sport because he had brought the game over to us, and he didn't have this kind of unnatural pride. He basically said, "Guys, I want you to try it and tell me what you think." And he sat there and made adjustments on the fly and made notes whenever we told him. I mean, I probably wouldn't have been able to take our criticism as well as Salva did.
Yeah, we
There
were
were a
pretty
lot of times in the middle of the
straightforward.
game when we would just shut it down and say, "That's not fun," or "I
Hmm.
don't like that," and Salva would say, "Okay, okay, explain to me what's not fun about it." And the one thing that John and I just kept coming back to was a lot of these. tabletop games that we play are restrictive, and they say things like, you get no, anytime a game says your opponent does this and you have no answer and there's nothing you can do about it, we don't really like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what we tried to get across to Salvo was, always leave it up to the player. The players should always have a choice, because I think, and now this is my own opinion, obviously, I think the worst thing you could do to anybody who's playing a game is to take the choice out of their hands, and that turns them into a passenger at the table, and that's just no fun for anybody.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. Something that you guys really helped me to nail down was when you failed basically the activation test. When we were playing, that was the order check actually, because we were playing still an earlier version.
Yep.
But when you fail basically to activate a unit, usually regular bolt action, you just go down, and that's it. But you guys said no, we want to do something. Maybe we can act later on during the turn after everybody is done, but we still want to be able to do something. And so that prompted me to create the rule for the unit being shocked, and that's what actually ended up in the new rule set.
Yeah,
Nice.
I hate it when games have compulsory. I mean, obviously sometimes it makes sense, but like when there's just when it takes all the agency away from the player because of a dice roll. Like, yeah, it's a dice
Mm-hmm.
game, right? But I don't want to be told no. I can't have my turn. A game. I'll pick on a different game than normal. I'll pick on a game that a lot of people probably don't know that much about. Uh, Blood Bowl. Oh my
Oh my.
god. When so the way Blood Bowl works, and there's a finite number of turns in every game of Blood Bowl, right? Like you
Yep.
just get so many turns per half. I think it's like 7 or 8 or 9. I can't remember this edition, but anyway, um, and if you fail an action with any one of your 11 guys on the pitch, it
Yes.
just turns over your turn. Like, even if it's not near the action of the play, like, even if you just move a guy and somehow fail to move, which explain to me how that works. Uh, you just turn your you just okay, boom, it's your opponent's turn now, even if you haven't moved anything else, which is cool because like you have to use your reasoning to order which units you think have a better chance of succeeding first and when you should do what. But what's stupid is the amount of things that can cause it to turn over. Like it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you fail any, if you're just running and slip on a patch of grass, it just turns the ball over. And man, I don't.
No, I, I
Oh
I
wow.
agree with you. I agree with you. Those games are technically called beer and pretzel, and they're a double-edged sword because they're very accessible to everyone. You just roll a die and see what happens, but at the same time, they can be very frustrated when uh, the die doesn't let you do it. Actually, one of the challenges of game designing is this: when you design a rule thinking for the average. So you think, okay, what would be the average? Like for example, let's say that I'm having a troop that are very fragile. I don't know, maybe the elves. I say, okay, they have a save of 6 up based on a d6. Okay. The problem is you cannot factoring in that if there is a player that is very lucky, he may successfully have those elves survive everything. So if you give anything an invulnerable save, speaking on 40k terms, so something that no matter what happens, they can always roll, and if they do that 6, they will survive. Well, you have to factor in that there will be cases where the bell curve will not follow the normal rules, and you will have people very, very frustrated.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's no fault of their own. It's just the dice that day. And
Yes, yes.
like
And I do not want to have that situation where the good planning, a good action goes to waste because of luck.
there should be some pay. And I think circling all the way back around to the start of this episode, I think that's where my I'm not gonna say newfound because I always like those style of games, but like my real concentration of interest in the larger scale war games has come from recently is because even it feels like there's so much going on that even doing something as simple as moving is is beneficial to you. You don't have those moments like in Blood Bowl where you just lose your turn, you know? you needed to move, which was an important thing, and you just lose it. You don't in Black Powder, for instance. You're gonna get to shoot if you don't move, and you're gonna get to at least move even if you don't end up shooting. Like something, you are going to be able to do something at some point during your entire turn in one of
Yeah,
your
you don't lose
phases.
your whole turn.
What was that, Mikey?
Yeah, you don't lose your whole turn.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's still, yes, it's a dice game. Yes, there needs to be things you can't account for, otherwise it would just be chess. But you're not getting punished actively, which I think with the rules I read for Tick, that we were talking about,
Hmm.
it a lot of skirmish games disregard that, I think because of the scale, but Tick's trying to be more keep the spirit alive of maybe some more conventional war game stuff. It's not, how do
Hmm.
I put it? It's very different from a conventional war game for sure, but I guess it brings some of the larger scale ideas down into this condensed version and makes it a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just fun. Fun is the right word to me anyway. What I've
Yes,
played of it, it seems more.
I would like to have players at the end of the battle, no matter how it went. I would like to have them sharing stories of what happened. Like, oh, that such and such happened. Oh, that was I don't know, amazing, or there was luck, or I would like always them to have that feeling. How can I overcome next time? It would be very depressing to me to have people saying the only thing I got to do next time is to hoping to have better luck. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. I don't think that's desirable, but yet I feel too many games people say that, and it's not just me. I've talked to a lot of people about a lot of different games, and some of them just fall flat on their face. Some of the juggernauts too, like your 40Ks. What in the world happened?
Yeah,
Mm.
and I think that's an admirable way to look at it, Salva, because at the end of the day, like you said, it's a contract between you and the other player. Both of you are trying to have fun. I learned at a young age, if you beat the crap out of your opponents, they don't come back.
No.
So that's why I was trying to, I've explained to you guys ad nauseum that I'm not really a tournament player because I don't think a tournament player, I don't have the mentality that's needed. I'm the type of guy that if I'm winning over you, I will take my foot off the gas pedal to make sure that you don't have a miserable experience. But the problem is I don't have the ability to turn it off whenever I need to. So in most of my games, you're going to get the same kind of play style. And honestly, that play style is what you were just saying, Salva. You don't want anybody to walk away not having a good time. And
Hmm.
sometimes the game does it to you, but you shouldn't as a player. And now this is me going on a bit of a soapbox. You shouldn't as a player actively look for that. You should not look for the game. You shouldn't derive your fun from making sure that your opponent didn't have fun. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I
Yeah, that would
think
be
that
another extreme.
yeah, a guy told me years ago. I used to coach girls softball for when my little daughter played, and he had said when to us coaches, you never can tell what that kid goes through outside of softball. And he said, you may be the highlight of that kid's week. So please make sure that you are. And I've tried to take that into a lot of things in life. And when I play somebody, and not sometimes I do better than others, I would like to think that my three different good sportsman awards, John, at tournaments.
Yeah, every time I ever went with you, we got best sportsman. So did
Yep,
Salvo at his, right? Didn't you?
yep.
No, no. I
No.
the only tournament I've done it was the NashCon at Bolt Action. That was my first and last.
But
Gotcha.
I'd like to believe that those three awards do hold true. That for the most part, I'm not making my opponent's games not fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotcha. Some games allow for that more than others. Games Workshop game. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding, but it is what it is. Not Lord of the Rings, though. Lord of the Rings is our precious child that we protect at all costs.
But that's
Anyhow,
what it does. It does really well.
yes. But yeah, I guess that's kind of wrapping up on most of the things we wanted to touch on today. Unless you guys have anything else, this is we got about 10 minutes till the hour mark. So if you want to throw anything in there, you know.
The only thing is, our next video, or probably very, very shortly in the future, is going to be something that we have never played. I have never played it in the last 10 years, and it's called War Machine. Andrew dropped us like literally in front of my front porch, and I heard he did the same with you guys.
Yep.
A bunch of miniatures.
Yeah.
Kind of like a drug dealer. He's, the first dose is free.
Yes. So I know that you guys probably never played the game before. I did, again, like in the earliest edition. So we're talking about at least 10 years ago. So me and Andrew, we played a little refresh or kind of up to date. What is War Machine in 2021, almost 2022, and I will be publishing that video pretty soon.
Cool. Yeah.
That's good.
I knew you guys had filmed that because that actually occurred the same night that our Black Powder video did. I just didn't know if we still plan to go through that. So that's good. That was news to me. I didn't know that we were still working on that.
Yes. We're gonna do this, and I know our audience. I don't know how many of our audience actually know War Machine or ever played with it, because it's definitely far away from historical. But it was definitely an experience for me to get back to a system that I liked back in the days. It feels more of a fantasy cartoonish kind of event, but nevertheless, I liked it because it is an American company, and I think that game exemplified the best what by many has been defined as the Ameritrash style of game.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Some of them, I go back and forth on Ameritrash games. Sometimes they're like my absolute favorite, and then other times I can't freaking stand them. I do like Euro games overall more.
Yes.
Um, you know, but something else. You're kind of sitting there reminding me, since we're just going on a soapbox, as Mikey said, a tangent now. A game that we need to get back to. You said it felt good to get back to a game that you hadn't played in years. And it feels like it's been years since we played Black Seas. And I'm sure if any of our Black Seas fans, because you guys are the ones that helped us kickstart the channel, are listening, you're probably like in tears, fuming, I don't know, whatever emotion, strong emotion you would have. I don't know, Mikey. Are we gonna do that?
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely love the game. It's been very busy, and
Yes.
we have opened up a whole new bunch of avenues of games that we enjoy. And here's the deal: listen, um, we're not a giant by any sense of the word. We're not mini wargaming. We're not one of these giant companies or YouTube channels that is driven by monetization. So I think when it really boils down to it is we kind of, and I really don't want this to come off as being bullish, but we kind of play whatever we feel like at the time, and it's not that we don't feel like playing Black Seas so much as there's just been so many other games right now that are just, ooh, let's play this.
Yeah, it's just time.
Yeah.
And then, we have two fleets that are like works in progress. Your French are way further along than my Spanish are. And they're there. We have them. It's just like when, especially with the holiday season coming around, because we had talked about being quite frank, rebooting the little campaign we did, like basically to start the channel, which is still on the table. It's just like when, how, the logistics, and then like, there's a few games that we all share together, but in reality, most of us play different games at different times. Like even the other night, you guys were playing War Machine in the other room, which is nothing wrong with that, but that's just, that's great because it gets us two videos. But then those two videos, what's in them, I guess, becomes less, like for instance, Tabletop CP, I'll just bring them up. Like they play a lot of games, but like Bolt Action, Bolt Action's where they have most of the resources, and then they just recycle those resources into other games. We can't really do that because War Machine is very different from Black Powder, and even Black Seas, even though it takes place in the same time period, is terrain-wise and everything a completely different scale and thing than that. And so it's like we just don't have the physical manpower or time to do everything we want to do.
Say, though, is, and I think you mentioned it in the very first podcast. We're a little different than I think a lot of these other channels. A lot of the other channels, and we could be wrong, but this is our assumption, tend to be one guy doing everything, and his buddies just, he will play games with his buddies. Whereas we kind of are, we're four different people, and Tyler here lately, he's taken a step back, but that's due to just to him living his life. But for the most part, it's four guys, and five when Tyler's available. Doing adding things to this channel and adding games to this channel. And the thing is that we always try to strive for is we try to find a game that we all want to play at the exact same time, and those are what we're really shooting for. We, above all, I think, as a group, enjoy the four-player games more than anything.
Yes.
And I know that one thing that we've been pushing for, and every time we get together and film something, the topic comes up. We want to do another big 2v2 Lord of the Rings game
Yeah, it's
because
been
we
too long.
really love how that game shines with all of the heroic movements and things like that. We've also discussed a large black powder game because I, for one, can imagine two guys on the same side of the table trying to assert their will, moving these regiments of infantry around and begging for help because, I'm about to look, there's a hole in my line. Can you shore it up? That sounds fun. So I'm going to throw another one out there. And this is obviously if they would want to. If John and I, if we can get our boats painted, I think we could probably do we could probably pull off some type of 2v2 Black Seas game
Oh yeah,
in the
easily.
future.
Easily, those rules are simple enough to kind of just go over them loosely and just have at it. Yeah, I want to play Black Seas again. That's why I brought it
Yeah.
up, and I want people to know that I want to play it. It's just like, man,
It's
time, and
just
then
important to note that we are still going to be lefty loosies with our crossing of the T. So just understand that at the beginning. Understand it now. If you are listening to this and you hear us mention the idea of a 2v2 Black Seas, for one, you got to pray that we can convince Andrew and Salva to do it. And then for two, you got to understand and just go ahead and swallow that idea that there are going to be some pretty loose crossing of the T's that we're going to allow to happen, and you're just going to have to deal with.
no, Mikey, you're becoming a villain.
No.
Oh.
There will never be a time whenever our masks line up. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Oh man, if you guys know what he's talking about there, then you're a real one. You're
Yeah.
a real one, and you've been here a while. But anyhow, I guess we should probably wrap up for today, or else we'll go on for forever. So, yeah, I had fun today talking about Scales, Tick, which is coming soon, and then War Machine apparently is coming soon too.
Yes.
So
Which,
with
by
all
the
that,
way, I'm taking opinions on my paint scheme for the Protectorate of Menoth. If anybody wants to throw in what colors I should do for the good guys.
do it. Let us
Mm.
know in the comments. I'm painting mine purple. I have a Signar, and they're getting painted purple. So
We literally just got some
Oh.
paint.
I'm
Yeah.
painting
Maybe
mine
it'll be
turquoise.
You say
ooh,
turquoise, Salva?
Yeah, the cricks, they're gonna be
Yep.
on a turquoise greenish blue. So we're gonna have a lot of cold colors.
Nice.
apparently, unless Mikey does like red, which
Oh,
is
God,
usually a
no.
bad guy color.
Yeah. I don't know. I had started with I got some Phoenician purple from Citadel. And I picked that up and I
Oh.
got some. But I mean, that could be an accent color. I've just got to figure out. I've got to look at the models and determine what they say to me. I'm definitely one of those kind of guys. I try to stay close with what the original scheme that maybe they designed the game with the idea of. But
Mhm.
I am very much the type of person that lets the models talk to me and tell me what they want to be.
Mhm.
Of course,
I agree
as
with you.
always. But yeah, War Machine coming soon. Let us know colors, and whatever you do in life.
Just
Just
a
don't
roll of
roll
one.
one.